Welcome back to the Fright Flick FMK podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jay. And on this week's episode, very special episode, very special. We're joined by our good friend, a friend of the Fright Flick fucked up family,
Absolutely.
J.R. Sid Stokes.
Yeah,
Hey, man,
that's
welcome,
me.
welcome back to the shit show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. That's fucking great to be back here.
And so, just like the last time you was on, we're calling you Sid, right?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah.
Okay, or AKA Big Trap. If
Yeah. Yeah, I was doing a watch party for the film yesterday, and they were like, "So your character's name is Big Daddy?" I was like, "No, it's Big Trav."
Big Trap, yeah. And if you're listening to this and you hadn't seen it yet, you need to watch
Yeah.
the movie and you'll get it. All the links are going to be in here, and
Absolutely.
we're going to get to that. But um, you, my friend, are something that I'm a huge fan of
Thank you very much.
independent movies, man. I love them. And I remember the first time you were on this show.
Mm.
We talked about your horror short film, Headstone to Solitude.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And I went back and pulled up the date 'cause I want to remember it. And
Mm.
it aired on September 22nd, just a little
Wow.
over a year ago.
Wow.
And I remember on that show, I was asking if you had anything upcoming, and
Hmm.
you told me you had something in the works that you were working on.
Yeah,
And damn it, here we are a little over a year later, and it's fucking
absolutely.
here, man.
It
It's
is here. It's been a crazy process, man.
Yeah, and your newest movie, Edge X.
Yes.
Yep, and that one is, hey, I know a lot of you people out there are tight with your money and you're stingy and you don't like spending, but hey, this bad boy is free on YouTube.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna cost you a fucking thing. And I'm telling y'all right now, family, if you don't want us to spoil it, 'cause we're gonna talk about it and we're gonna spoil some shit. You, you need to pause it now and then come back and listen to us. But it just hit what YouTube, what, on the 10th?
Yeah, yes. Yep.
Okay,
On the
yep. So
10th. Yeah.
this is baby's fresh. And so when you would hit me up and let me know, and you would me the link to it,
Mm.
and everything was about to be released and stuff, and so
Mm.
I waited to
Mm.
watch it because I wanted to watch it the day we were going to get on here and talk about it,
Mm.
and it's super cool, man, because it's crazy to know that like a year ago we were sitting there and you were like, yeah, I got this,
Yeah.
and now it's like, and we've kind of stayed in touch throughout, like,
Yeah,
what's coming
absolutely,
up and
man.
stuff like that. And so it's super cool to see it, you know,
Hmm.
once you started like posting pictures and stuff like that. And
Mm.
I remember seeing some of the pictures on your Instagram,
Mm.
which all the links for Sid is going to be in the description. On if you're listening, whatever your podcast is, all the links are going to be there. But on your Instagram, you started, posting pictures, even on the
Mm.
EdgeX Instagram
Yes.
page,
Yes.
and it was kind of cool today because I'd seen the pictures,
Hmm.
and then today watching the movie, I was like, oh, I remember that picture. I remember, and the characters, I knew who they were, and I had a face, a name, and I kind of knew what it
Yeah.
was about. So, um, and like I said, I love independent, and
Hmm.
I'm a what y'all do, it blows my mind. I love it because I know I'm
Mm.
not that way. I'm not, I love to watch them, love to talk shit.
Yeah.
My mind does not work that way.
That's
But
okay.
I will say this, family. This is this is not a horror movie. It's more like a crime drama. And I know we do horror movies here, whatever, but we also do independent. And when I have somebody like Sid, who, was on here with Headstone of Solitude, and for me, being able to be a little small part of just bringing some attention to you, your movies,
Mm.
what you do. And so that's why I'm excited about talking about it, because
Absolutely, man.
realistically, this movie, in some people's cases, this movie's based on a whole lot of drug use.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
But for some people, because after watching the movie, there have there's people who have lived through it,
Yeah.
and people out there that is their horror.
Hmm.
Family who's had family members go through it,
Hmm.
or family members that that's the fear. There's hoping that one of their children or family members never has to go through this
Hmm.
stuff. So realistically, it can be because some people could see this and think, well, holy shit, that's like this huge fear of mine. Or
Hmm.
people have watched it and know somebody who's
Hmm.
been in Chester's shoes and Cynthia's shoes
Yeah.
and has gone through it. So yeah, it can
Yeah.
be that way because people have different.
Hmm.
Certain people aren't scared of jump scares and creepy monsters under the bed.
Yeah.
Some shit is real life stuff that it could be a horror to them.
Yeah.
And so I've been wanting to watch it, and I was like, man, I want to watch it, but I want to wait
Yeah.
before I do the show because I want it to be kind of
I,
fresh.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so I was looking forward to watching it. And but before we get into it, just where did it just kind of tell me like how it all came together in your head
Yeah.
about what you wanted to do with it and how it all started.
Yeah. Well, one of the first things that I said to Cadence and Randall, who play the two protagonists, Jimmy and Chester, one of the first things I said to them was, I'd really like to make a feature film that like isn't painfully obviously made by teenagers. I wanted to make a film that it didn't appear as if like, a few kids came together with a camera and made a movie. I wanted to actually try and have some legit production quality behind it, and that was like first and foremost, that was the first thing that was in my mind when making the film. um
Now before we go on,
yeah.
we talking to a young buck right now, family. Like, hey, I mean, when you first came on the show and you told me how old you are and you done Headstone to Solitude, I was kind of like,
Yeah.
holy shit. And so, hey, man, kudos. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just
No,
impressed
no
by what
worries.
you do at your age.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate that, man. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I directed the film at 18, and I turned 19 like 2 or 3 months ago. So, being a young filmmaker is it's a completely different topic, but yeah, it's a very wonderful, immersive experience being so young and trying to tell such powerful stories, and especially in regards to making the film again. I thought that a huge topic that I could relate to, and maybe a lot of other people could relate to, is adolescent substance abuse, which is what the film is primarily about. Adolescents who are troubled and sort of get caught up in the wrong crowd and the wrong environment, and they get hooked onto some substances, and it's a very unfortunate reality for a lot of people, as you were saying earlier. It happens more often than not, and yeah, I thought that was just a story that I needed to tell at that point in my life, freshly out of high school. And I had so many wonderful friends and collaborators come on board and believe in what we were doing together, so it was just a really, really great experience. And it was just like a once in a lifetime type of moment, coming together and making that type of story.
And for the ones that were in the movie, were a lot of those like just
Mhm.
acquaintances and friends of yours?
I was very good friends with the two leads, Cadence and Randall, and they
Okay.
brought in a lot of people
Okay,
that they
gotcha.
knew, and I formed some really close relationships with a lot of people a part of the film.
Yeah, and because they all and I just by watching it, I just assumed that maybe y'all literally like grew up together, knew each other because everybody clicked. Very,
Yeah.
it was a everybody just seemed to have this like they knew each other. It had this feeling of
Yeah. Great
the
chemistry.
yeah, they like they all went to school together and hung out together
Mm.
and they know, they had, like you said, good chemistry. And so, yeah, I was very impressed with the way and that's why I was curious if they were like
Mhm.
just, you know, friends of yours and just
Yeah.
that's super cool, man. That is.
Yeah, we all formed, really close friendships from the movie. Some of us were previously friends beforehand, but some of us also got matching tattoos after the film as well, which is cool to like symbolize the work we did. So
What kind of tattoo was it?
it
That-
was let's see if I can get it on camera. It's this little tattoo right here. It's the X and Edge X. It's a little
okay.
yeah,
Got you.
little
Got you.
design there. Yeah, it's just like a symbolic thing.
Hey, that's cool. I'm a big tattoo guy, so I'm always
Nice. Cool, man. Cool.
and so when I remember when we talked about, Headstone of Solitude,
Mm,
that was kind of filmed more or less kind of like, I think you
hmm.
said like that basement or whatever was at your house or something.
Yeah, it was a basement. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you'd mentioned, like the picture on the was like of your grandmother or something,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So was Edge X, was any of that done kind of like local stuff that
Yeah,
you knew?
definitely we had a lot of helping hands behind the scenes with getting us locations, and
Mhm.
a lot of those locations were just friends or family friends, and they, we asked to just shoot at their house or in their room for a few hours, and it was all across like the Long Island area.
Okay.
I'm from Long Island, New York, so it was just sort of around the area, nothing too out of the way.
Nice, nice. Now we're gonna we're about to kind of start talking about this movie now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, because I had no clue really of what it was about. Because even no, even because you had posted stuff on your Instagram and stuff,
Sure.
I tried not to do. I didn't watch any type of like video clips of anything. Like if it's
Gotcha.
any type of video, I just didn't want to watch it because that's like watching trailers to me. I didn't want any type of spoilers. And so
Gotcha.
I had just seen pictures and stuff that you had posted. So going into
Sure.
it, I had no clue,
Hmm.
and right out the gate, we get introduced to, Chester and Cynthia.
Yeah.
And I when it started, I'm kind of like, okay, you know, they're into the drug scene, like seriously
Yeah.
into it. Like you can
Yeah.
look at them and tell. Um,
That was credit. All the credit there goes to our incredible makeup artist, Demi Pateras.
that's what I was just about to bring up was
Yeah.
your makeup person who did this, because throughout this movie, they sometimes I like a movie sometimes when I can watch it and it can make you feel a certain way. And
Mm.
as I'm watching it, there were times where, damn it, I felt a little dirty
Mm, yeah.
because a lot of them just had this like, that this just strung out look,
Yep.
sweaty, blacked out eyes, and I'm just like, holy shit, I want to take a shower and then I want to go buy like a bottle of Olay facial wash and just give it to them.
Yeah, we had like an incredible makeup artist. I mean, she really pulled the film together. I always give her the most credit for just making this film happen. This everything that she did completely elevated what the rest of us did, So yeah, Demi Pateras, our wonderful makeup artist, she was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
And she nailed it. And
Yeah.
you see her, you can tell her. I said she nailed it. Because damn it, it made me want to take a bath and go wash my face.
Yeah. Yeah, we
But
couldn't make this film without her.
yeah, it was. And one thing I like, because we won't spoil a whole lot of it, family. We're just going to kind of touch on some things that
Mm.
that um this movie also gave us time to get to know these characters. Uh,
Yeah.
sometimes they come in and out and you don't really know much.
Mm.
And right out of the gate, pretty quick, you get to know, Chester and Cynthia,
Mm.
and our dude that played, I got their names right here, who played
Mm.
Tyson, Giovanni.
Yes, he's phenomenal.
Yep. And and I liked it took me a second to catch on because
Yeah.
it seemed like it was going one way, and then we catch our dude Chester, played by, is it Cadence?
Yes.
Yeah, Cadence Meyer.
Meyer. Yep.
Meyer. And it shows him sitting there at the table with Tyson, who's played by Giovanni.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm kind of like, well, this dude looks completely different now. Chester, he's shaven, he's cleaned up. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then it took me a second to realize, okay, we're going kind of back and forth,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know. And
Absolutely.
and I like movies kind of like that would do that. That would kind of like let me, I felt like I was playing catch up there for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but here, when I'm watching it, here's one thing I'll say: I have never in my life, and I'm 48 right now, and I've never done any type of drug in my life. Just never done
Mhm.
it. mainly because I grew up real religious and I was scared shitless of my mother
Yeah.
ever catching me because she would have beat the brakes off of me. And so it just in the back of my mind, it kept me away from him. And
Yeah.
and after watching this movie, I never ever, never, ever, because holy shit, man, because they played it so well. Like
Yeah.
Chester and Cynthia, like the part where in the beginning where Chester
Hmm.
goes to his dad's place,
Yeah.
he's knocking on the door,
Hmm.
and he's basically like, let me come in there and get my stuff,
Yeah.
and you can tell, like, okay, you're just looking for something to get a fix,
Yeah.
yeah, but he's just, and you can tell because he's just like, I got like a computer in there and some stuff, and I just want to grab it. And the
Yeah.
dad, and that's where I could go back to as a parent,
Hmm.
probably one of the worst fears ever
Hmm.
is having to turn your back on your child.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the dad had gotten to that this point. And you can tell that this was
It's
not the first
troubling.
time. This was
Yeah.
not the first time Chester came knocking on daddy's door. Jesus.
Yeah. That's one way to put it for
Yeah.
sure.
And so, for the dad having to like be like, hey, you gotta leave.
Yeah.
And that's where you first see Chester kind of like, break down crying in the stairway. But that's when the first time
Mm.
it jumped to him and Tyson sitting
Yeah.
at the table when I'm looking at
Mhm.
fucking Chester and I'm like, holy shit, he cleans up. Totally different looking dude.
Yeah.
And but yeah, how was it with the Chester and Cynthia? Because they were just they clicked, man.
Yeah.
When they were
Yeah,
on
they were
scene
great.
together, it was, they were really good.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, they were phenomenal to work with. I really, Cadence, is a very good friend of mine, and we formed such a close relationship during the filming of the movie. And there was such a great working relationship between Cadence and I. There was just complete trust and belief that we both had in each other's abilities to make this movie. And throughout the whole process, Cadence was just the number one guy to support me and support my decision making and just support what we were doing, and he really, really dived so deeply into this role, and I'll always be grateful for that. And of course, Alexandra, she was lights out, not only is she's one of my favorite human beings, she's such a wonderful person outside of such a terrible role. Like,
Yeah.
Cynthia, like that character is such a terrible person,
Yeah.
but Alexandra the person is just like one of the most wonderful human beings I know, and she's a close friend of mine, and so they both really trusted and believed in the material so deeply, and they kind of just let it flow, and obviously her and I had shared some scenes later in the movie, which we'll get to, I'm sure,
Oh yeah.
but Chester and Cynthia, a lot of that chemistry was real because Cadence and Alexandra, they have a good friendship in real life as well. They've been friends for a long time at that point, couple years I believe. So getting them both to work with one another and to step into this role and trust me and believe in me as their director, it was just everything was so smooth, everything was really lights out when it came to their performance.
Yeah, they were, top notch. And it was because when it starts off, there's
Hmm.
a part of me, I felt bad for,
Hmm.
hell, I didn't know who to feel bad for. Because here's where in the beginning, I'm kind of picking up on, okay, Chester got it. But then you got, it felt like in the beginning, like Cynthia was agging it on. Like Cynthia was,
Yeah.
hey babe, come on. Like, you know, and I'm just like, hold on, Chester, you're blinded by the girl. You're hold on.
Yeah, that's a
And,
recurring theme. She's sort of
yeah,
this femme fatale figure.
yeah. And so she played that. And it's crazy though, because I remember the first time I seen her, in the beginning, she's got like the
Mhm.
wig on, the fancy
Yes.
makeup. And,
Yeah.
it took me a second to realize that that was the same person
Yeah.
when we see her like stripped down, where it's just like,
Yeah.
and maybe it was the scene where she's oh, it's the scene when she's with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when she's with fucking, Big Trap. And and you're like, and she's talking to you, and you're like, and that's the first time I seen her. I'm like, is this the same chick that with the
Yeah.
wig on?
Mhm.
Because,
Yeah.
and so and then you really get to see her. Um, and then it gets point then where I start feeling bad for her. Like,
Yeah.
okay, she's the one, like, okay, like this girl's just trying to survive.
Yeah, she's a pawn on the chessboard,
Yeah,
man.
she's trying
Absolutely.
to survive, and then you come to find out, like, because she's with her sister, I think, who
Mhm.
plays
Yes.
Catherine, played by Charlotte Stable.
Yes.
Is that
Yep.
how I say that? Stable?
I think it's Stabile, but close
Stabile?
enough. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but Charlotte Stabile. You know, um, and then I realized, okay, they're kind of like just trying to survive. Maybe
Yeah.
older sister here is trying to take care of younger sister who seems to still be in school, and,
Yeah.
and trying to keep food on the table and take care of her. And,
Yeah.
and you're seeing her, man, when she's in the kitchen, and she just looks like,
She looks like death, you know?
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's points where I start kind of like feeling like, well, damn, I said I feel bad for this old girl. Like I feel bad. Like
Yeah.
you got fucking Big Trap treating her like shit, and I'm just like, this girl
Yeah.
just trying to keep food on the table for the little
Yeah.
sister, and try to,
Absolutely.
and I felt like, like she, in her mind, I would think she would be trying to do everything in her power to keep
Hmm.
little sister Catherine away
Hmm.
from that lifestyle.
Yes, absolutely.
And she,
I think Cynthia, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I
no, no,
think
no, go ahead, go
Cynthia
ahead.
is I think really the character of Cynthia is has two sides to her, you know, it's almost two characters in one. And I think Alexandra and I had a lot, really like a lot of deep conversations when we were filming about her process into stepping into that role, you know. And I think the Cynthia that we see when she's with Chester and Big Trap and these other characters, as opposed to the Cynthia we see when she's on her own, I think they're very much two different people. You know, I think there's a vulnerability that she lets out when she's not around that stuff, and as the film progresses, we start to see the cracks and her being more vulnerable throughout the film.
Yeah, most definitely. And as it kind of goes on, we start getting introduced to these other characters, and we
Yeah.
get introduced to Jimmy, who's played by Randall Krause.
Yes.
Okay, Jimmy. And at first I didn't know, we catch Chester calling him up, and he's talking on the phone, wanting to hang out with him. And then I come to find out, like, Jimmy is trying to do the right thing. Jimmy's trying to
Yes.
get cleaned up. He's trying to
Yeah.
make better for himself.
Hmm.
And even I wrote a quick little note on here. Um, what that said. Oh, after Chester's trying to get him to get back on it.
Yeah.
And so I wrote my note, and I put Chester dot 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 shitty friend trying to get his friend back on the shit.
That's a great description of
Yeah,
him.
that was my note. Shitty
Shitty
friend.
friend trying to get his friend back on the shit.
Yeah. And I'm like, holy shit, Chester. Like, you would think that, I don't know, maybe where he was at in that time, I could see it in him just being like,
Hmm.
I don't want to be in this lifestyle
Hmm.
by myself. I want somebody here with me.
Yeah.
And so you catch, and you can tell, like, because there's a scene where you have Jimmy has a brother, Carl,
Yes.
played by Peter, and I can't pronounce his last name,
Koncevich. One of
Hansovich.
my favorite human beings. He's
And
fantastic.
and he's trying to be there for his brother, and
Yeah.
he's got his back and stuff like that. And you're thinking right now, like, okay, Jimmy's on the right path. Jimmy's trying to get the shit straight. But
Yeah.
he's got fucking Chester over here just
Yeah.
fucking bring him down. And Chester, I mean, Jimmy eventually
Mm.
gives into that peer pressure.
He does. He caves in.
Yeah, and it's they're out there in the park, and Jimmy's basically trying to tell him, like, hey man,
Hmm.
I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Chester ain't hearing him. Chester
Hmm.
wants to do Chester things.
Yeah.
And you know, and then it just gets to the point to where it's like it's like Jimmy wears down. I don't know if it was like where Jimmy was like yeah, I don't know if it was almost like you just felt sorry for him and wanted to be there with him and help him and try to be a
Mm-hmm.
friend to him,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And he finally going to talk Jimmy into
Mm-hmm.
we're going to go we're going to go party.
Mm-hmm.
Then they show up at Big Trap's place, you
Yeah.
know, and they go in there, and I'm just sitting there as I'm watching. I'm going, no, Jimmy,
Don't do it,
just get
Jimmy.
up and leave, Jimmy. Like
Don't do it.
just look at him and go like, fuck you, dude, and just get up and
Yeah.
leave. You know, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not that simple. It's
Yeah.
easy from like, Monday morning quarterbacking and sitting back going,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'd have just got up and left.
Yeah,
I tell people all the time,
he's a very flawed person, Jimmy. I think all of these characters are very broken, but
yeah,
Jimmy especially, you want to feel bad for him in every scene he's in, but he constantly fucks up. He constantly makes mistakes. He's constantly doing something that would like remove any sympathy you have for him, and it
yeah,
really sucks. It really did. It sucked having to witness that type of person because there are plenty of people like Jimmy that just can't stay out of their own way. And is a lot of that attributed to the influence of Chester in his life?
mhm,
Maybe, but also maybe Jimmy just isn't a good person. It really just depends on who you are and how you interpret the story.
yeah. Because I felt for Jimmy a little bit
Yeah.
early on
Yeah.
until he takes him to the party. And,
Hmm.
Chester, brings out the cocaine, chops him
Hmm.
a line, like, hey, man, those are yours. And I'm
Hmm.
sitting there going, at this moment, Jimmy, all you got to do is be like, fuck you, dude. Like, kind of like, fuck you, because I'm trying to do better. And you're still
Hmm.
willing to sit there and put this in front of me. Jimmy
Hmm.
could have done that. But Jimmy, no, like you said, Jimmy just
Hmm.
Jimmy a fuck up at this moment in my mind. He gonna drive
Yeah.
there, he gonna hit them lines. and
Yeah.
and then he gets, and then I start at this point though, by this point,
Hmm.
I don't like Chester because
Ah.
Chester is trying to, because this is when I was feeling sorry for Jimmy.
Yeah.
I'm watching the way Chester's acting toward Jimmy, and I'm like, come on, man, Jimmy trying to clean up. And then when
Yeah.
Jimmy just jumps on and does his own shit, I'm just
Hmm.
like, well, holy shit, Jimmy, like I had you back, and then you just gonna, give me a
Yeah.
big
The
fuck
fuck,
you.
Jimmy? Why the fuck would you do that?
Yeah, what are you doing, Jimmy? Get off your knees and stop snorting, man. Come on.
Yeah, I think Chester, especially in the when the therapy scenes, cut into the story, the sponsor scenes when they cut into the story, um, we're supposed to feel bad for Chester, but I don't know if a lot of people do end up feeling bad for Chester early in the story, because we can see why he has so much resentment against himself. I think a lot of that, like, prejudice against himself is valid. I think it's warranted. It's hard to feel bad for him, at least in the first half of the movie.
Yeah, and even when they would cut back to at this point when they're cutting back to the sponsor scene with Tyson,
Mhm.
and I'm listening to him talk, and at this point
Mhm.
he's realizing, he's letting him know like, hey man, like, in my type of words, like, dude, I've done some fucked up shit. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
damaged friendships. I've done all this stuff, and you can tell we're in during those sessions where he's realized, okay,
Mhm.
what, and even at this point though, you don't know everything because it peels back as it goes, which I liked, and we get to, and this is the part where I was finally, because Cynthia comes off kind of quiet, soft spoken. Early,
Yeah.
she ain't really outspoken. She's just kind of like that, just
Yep.
takes.
Yep.
And then the part where uh Chester thinks he's fucking lost his drugs, and
Mhm.
the whole time is our boy Jimmy then snatched his shit up.
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
absolutely. It's all
come on,
Jimmy's
Jimmy.
fault.
You could have went and looked for Chester. But hey, dude, you mind if I take a little bit more of this? I got this girl up in the bathroom
Yeah,
to
could have
do a
just
thing.
asked. Why'd
We
you have
got
to take it, Jimmy?
Yeah, I got Sarah up in the bathroom, played by Ella.
Ella Meyer, yeah.
Are that her in Cadence?
No, no relation. Just
Holy
an
shit!
yeah, it's an insane coincidence. I know.
Oh, and I seen the names of it. Man, that gotta be like maybe brother, sister.
No,
Holy
no,
shit,
no
that's crazy.
relation. Yeah.
But our girl Sarah, you know,
Hmm.
and Sarah just at a party trying to hang out, have a good time.
Yeah.
Now Jimmy done been sucked down into the hole by Chester.
Yeah.
And then it was crazy to me. And this what I dislike Jimmy more because Jimmy spends the same shit with her. He's like,
Yeah.
come on, just do it. I'll take care of you. I won't let nothing happen
Yeah.
to you.
Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
like, you son of a bitch. That's the same thing Chester said to you, or you drop to your knees.
Yeah,
He'll call the
there's a
table.
lot of repetition in the film, you know. There's a lot of reoccurring, you know, lines of dialogue. There's a lot of reoccurring of the same sort of archetype of scene, you know, where we see how the influence trickles down to every single character and, you know, these delinquents almost, you know. And even going back to like Cynthia, you mentioned how she's like more reserved in the beginning of the film, but you know, as we start to see like Big Trap influencing her, you know, we get to see her become more volatile and angry and like resentful of like Chester. You know, we start to see all of these people crack as the movie goes on. It's sort of this domino effect.
And yeah, and when it got to the first time where after Chester's shit was stolen by his good
Mhm.
buddy, he goes upstairs with Cynthia and he's
Mhm.
basically and you could tell Chester needs a fix.
Mhm.
And I will give Cadence all the credit in the world for this dude sold it, in my opinion. I've never been around, you know,
Yeah,
drugged out druggies like that, but I'm in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay,
he was great.
he was good. Like
Yeah.
I like the once again the makeup with the fucking sweaty ass, dirty
Yep.
face, kind of sweaty hair. Just you could tell he's losing it. And then we got our girl Cynthia, bro, with her nice wig on, fancy makeup and shit. And he's like, I just need a fix, and he's wanting her shit. And she finally stands up, and she's kind of like, finally, like, like, get the fuck out,
Yeah,
And
he's acting
finally,
ridiculous.
yeah. And I'm like, there you go, Cynthia, kick him the fuck out, girl, and you
Yeah, get
go
him
to
the fuck
you,
out.
yeah. And and then it's so bad for Chester because Chester finds her stash
Yeah.
and steals it. You know,
Yeah.
he's just gonna take her shit, like
Yeah.
because apparently
He's
him
just
and Cynthia,
terrible. He's
yeah.
so terrible.
And apparently him and Cynthia were like, drug buddies slash fuck buddies,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's kind of what their thing was. Like, it wasn't
Mhm.
serious, but we're gonna get
Yeah.
together, do some drugs and have some sex and have a good time together.
Yeah.
Um, but at this point, Chester just so he needs that fix. He didn't give a fuck about Cynthia. He's calling her names, talking shit to her. And I'm just like, damn it, Cynthia, if you don't fucking stand up and say something, and
Yeah.
then she finally does. And
Yeah.
and then once again, Jimmy, swear to
Mhm.
God, Jimmy, I was so happy at the ending when Jimmy got his. Let me just say that.
Wow, that's the first I've heard anyone say that.
Oh, I
Wow.
was, hey, no, we'll get to that because
That's great.
Jimmy's a little punk ass because
Yeah.
one, he pulls the same shit with Sarah, gets Sarah in some trouble. Sarah ODs, has to go to the hospital,
Mhm.
all because Jimmy being Jimmy. And then it was like the next day, he goes out to where dude Chester is passed out. Chester's, he's strung out. Still
He's
got the
fucked
belt
up.
around his arm, all
Yep.
shit, you know.
Yeah.
And you see Jimmy come in there trying to
Mhm.
talk to him and trying to, I guess, let him know about this girl that had
Mhm.
OD'd Sarah. And while he's trying to do it, you see this son of a bitch steal the bag
Yeah.
off the
That's a
fucking.
great catch. Very good catch.
Yeah, he steals the bag. As soon as I seen him grab that bag and put it in his pocket, I said, "Damn it, Jimmy, are you stealing from this dude twice? 24 hours. You done steal from our
That's
dude
a
twice."
great catch, Jay. Thank you for
Yeah.
catching that. That was great.
And so while he's trying to talk to Jimmy, and he
Yeah.
finally comes out and tells, I mean, Jimmy's talking to Chester, and he basically comes out and
Mhm.
tells him, I
Mhm.
took your stash. I took the bag.
Mhm.
And, now I gave it to this girl and she OD. And he's thinking she's dead at this point.
Mhm.
He just thinks Sarah's done checked out. You-
Yeah.
And, you know, and this is where I feel like, as I'm watching it, where Chester is getting to that rock bottom. He's on his way. He's getting there.
Mhm.
Jimmy has just gone full on. Like he
Yeah.
jumped off that fucking wagon and
Yeah.
barrel rolled downhill.
Yeah.
Because, and then I'm just like, Jimmy gets to this point where you can tell he's fucked up, and then
He's done. Yeah.
he's gonna call his damn brother Carl.
Hmm.
And here once again, Jimmy, to where you deserved everything that happened to you, because Jimmy gonna get on the phone with his brother and his and throw Chester under the bus.
Hmm.
The brother's gonna be like, was this Chester? And I'm saying, and then Jimmy gonna go, yeah. I'm like, damn it, Jimmy. Chester didn't grab you by the back of the neck and put you on your knees and tell you to snort that shit.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Chester took
Hmm.
you to the party. Yeah, but this is free will. You could have
Hmm.
stood up. But no, Jimmy, you went down that road and now you sit up here with your brother like, oh, it was Chester. Come
Hmm.
on, Jimmy, you done stole from your boy twice.
Hmm.
You done set a girl OD because you used the same line Chester used on you. Baby girl, I got you. I'm gonna take care of you. I'm like, and at this point, I'm like, something better happen to Jimmy, damn it. You know, I wanted either I wanted either Chester to take him out. I
Oh.
was like, damn it, Chester, just fuck him up. Uh,
Yeah.
and then we get to the part though. I like this part of the movie
Hmm.
where Big Trap and Cynthia.
Hmm.
Um, it's a rough morning. You could tell they woke up still
Hmm.
strung out,
Hmm.
and Big Trap comes down there and he's just trying to come down. He's trying to get level headed again.
Yeah,
He's trying
absolutely.
to, we used to all, go out and get drunk at night and get up next morning, chug you a beer, and it'd be like, hair of the dog, and it would level you back out.
Yeah.
And so Big Trap's having a rough morning. He's like, hey, I just
Yeah.
need a little something.
Yeah.
Go get my shit that I gave you
Hmm.
to hold on to. Go get that for me. And at this point, she has no clue that it's gone.
No, she does not.
And Big Trap don't like it when he can't get his fix, damn it.
No, he does not. No, he does not.
And you can tell, and even, holy shit, I'm feeling more and more bad for Cynthia. And
Hmm.
this is because he's talking to her. He's like,
Hmm.
where's my stuff at? Where's it at? And she's trying, and you see her going through the door, and you see this look. And one thing I liked in this movie, I loved the close-ups. Like when you went in on some faces and
Hmm.
that like super close up, and you're seeing the sweat, you're seeing the black eyes, and so when she's panicking and she's trying to find it, and then you just go straight asshole, Big Trap, and just
Yeah.
you know, and
It was hard for me to do that, between every take. Yeah, not only was it so troubling to depict such like a disgusting person, but between every take, I always apologize to Alexandra because I felt so bad having to say all those really mean things. And she kept telling me I don't have to apologize, but like I was so disgusted with this behavior and with this character. And believe me, I couldn't wait to get home and get out of that.
yeah, and that's one thing that I was going to ask you was like how that was doing those scenes because you're in her face, like grabbing her by the
Mhm.
back of the hair, like it is some
Yeah.
straight up like you're a piece of shit whore pretty much, you
Yeah.
know, and yeah, and that had to, because I was wondering, when it comes to, I always kind of like to ask people like where they have to go mentally.
Mhm.
They go to those types of roles where you have to
Yeah.
flip that switch and be like, like you said, like you had to be this disgusting asshole that
Yeah.
just treated this woman like she was shit on your shoe.
It was terrible. Yeah, yeah. Me and Alexandra, we had so many deep conversations, over the phone or in person about, getting into that process, diving deep, and more so her than me. She
Mhm.
has a bigger role in the film, but for her, to speak a little bit on her process, I think, she had a lot of mental exercising that she was doing, right before shooting or in between takes, where she would kind of just sit there and think, and think about this darkness that I'm sure she has stored away in the back of her mind. And for me also, I couldn't think of myself when I was playing that character. I couldn't think of how I would perceive anything around me. I had to completely step away from who I am as a person, and I had to step into this completely different person, and how this person lives, and the way Big Trap operates, what's his daily life, who does he talk to, who does he hang out with, and as far as we know, Cynthia and Big Trap have such a dysfunctional relationship that, like the rest of the characters we see in the film, it's revolving around substance, and some form of substance, whether it's drugs or sex or anything between that. And I think Big Trap and Cynthia, I think they're sort of on the same wavelength in the fact that I think Big Trap greatly influences Cynthia, because I don't know if Cynthia is inherently a bad person. I think there are quite a few people that have, told me opposite. They feel bad for the likes of Jimi and they hate Cynthia, and it depends on who you are. But I think for me, I think Cynthia is maybe not inherently a bad person. I think she is really, really controlled by the idea of substance, and Big Trap sort of interfering between that, and I don't know. I don't think Cynthia's a bad person. I think Big Trap is I think he's awful. I think he really plays a huge part on who Cynthia becomes.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, for me, Cynthia was the one pretty early on that I felt for. You
Hmm.
know, it didn't take long for me to dislike Jimmy. He was just gradually just downhill in my book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and Chester was the same way for me early on. You know, when I started seeing the shit Chester was doing, like when he was trying to pull Jimmy back in, when he was, the way he would talk to Cynthia, the where basically like, you're nothing,
Mm.
Cynthia. You're my fix or my piece of ass, whichever
Mm.
one, you know.
Yeah.
And but like I said, that's when at that point you realize that he's on his way down.
Hmm.
He's going to get to that rock bottom where there's
Hmm.
nothing left to do but look up when you
Hmm.
get that point,
Hmm.
and it all does come down on him because I think at some point Chester realizes that Cynthia isn't just a fix and a piece of ass.
Hmm.
I think Chester got some feelings for her.
He does. He
Yeah,
grows
like
an attachment to her.
yeah, and deep down there's he has a love for her, and he realizes
Hmm.
that he fucked that up,
Hmm.
and you hear it when he's having his sessions with Tyson, and
Hmm.
he's talking about the stuff he's done, and you can tell like Chester is where he's never he can't let go of that person that
Yeah.
as clean as he's because he does get clean people he
Hmm.
does get clean,
Yeah.
um, and but you can tell that he is struggling with
Hmm.
that person that he was,
Hmm.
and trying to get over that, and then we get to the part to where I was a fan when the shit had done kind of went sideways with Chester and Cynthia. You know,
Hmm.
Cynthia, was her and Chester had a moment, and then Jimmy just shows up, to
Hmm.
get his fix. He's knocking on Cynthia's door, and
Yeah.
Cynthia's like, talking to him, and I'm just like, and in my mind at that moment, because Big Trap already knows that his
Yeah.
shit was stolen. Um, and Cynthia knows who stole it from fucking Chester.
Yeah. Yeah.
She knows this. And so when he shows up in Cynthia's place, I was like, "Ooh, let this be where Jimmy gets his. I don't care if Cynthia fucks him up, but I want somebody to lay hands on Jimmy."
Yeah.
And when she's like, and he's talking to her, and he's like, you can tell he's just he needs his fix. He's just wanting, he kind of asked her about Chester, and she kind of like, plays it off a little bit, but then she's kind of
Yeah.
like, I gotta go pee. Everything's set up inside, and he's going in there thinking he's gonna get his fix. The next
Mhm.
thing you know, you got three masked dudes sitting there. And boy, when they snatched Jimmy up, I was like, oh, yes, this is what I want to see. Damn it.
Yeah.
Because Cynthia's, man, she's been treated like shit.
Mhm.
Because at this point, she's got the black eye because Big Trap, we
Yeah.
see it,
Presumably
but we
hit her.
know
Yeah.
that
Yep.
Big Trap laid hands on her.
Yeah.
She got this black eye and stuff,
Yeah.
and now we got, she's already had hers. Chester is bottoming out. Chester has done lost his girl. He's realizing that all his shit that he's done has cost him everything.
Yeah, his
He has no
breakdown,
family.
his breakdown at the end of the trailer scene between him and Cynthia, I think that was phenomenal on Cadence's part. I think that really sums up Chester's character arc throughout the entire film in that one moment, where after he hits her and she spits on him and walks away, he has this breakdown. He doesn't know how to react otherwise. He doesn't walk around, he doesn't stare. He just breaks down. He drops to his knees and breaks down, which is a recurring theme amongst the other characters as well, where they all kind of just break down at one point or another. We see Jimmy break down a few scenes earlier after Sarah calls him and says, hey, you're fucked. We see these characters break down, and I think that's how humans, that's their most natural way of reacting to grief and loss and trouble, is to just break down. So yeah, I thought that was just an interesting tidbit for sure.
Yeah, and especially when he laid hands on her, when Chester and they were kind of going at it out, had this little trailer, and he kind of, I knew when he hit her, I said, "Oh,
Mhm.
that's it, buddy." Like,
That's it. And,
whatever.
and that also shows that he's not much different from Big Trap. He
That's what I
really
was
isn't.
about to say. I was about to
Yeah.
say he
He's
just got
not
on
much
Big
different
Trap's
from my
level.
character. Absolutely, And to Cynthia, I think even though we know Big Trap is terrible, I think Big Trap has a lot more control over Cynthia than Chester does over Cynthia. I think Cynthia has the influence over Chester. And right there and then when he hit her, he really stooped to Big Trap's level. There was no redeeming that for any character in the film, but let alone Chester, who we know is just kind of this bad person in a lot of ways. And by the end of the film, we see that he understands this and he's matured a little bit, and we've seen that he's gotten clean. But I don't think that sobriety excuses his actions. I think that a lot of what he's done and a lot of what he said throughout the film, for all of these characters, really, they all face their consequences. They all will have consequences if they don't already in the film.
Yeah, most definitely. And even at toward the end of it, after I got done cheering when Jimmy got his ass beat down,
Yeah.
was clapping on my couch, like, there you go, Especially when I seen it was Big Trap whooping his ass. I was like, go ahead, Big,
Yeah.
handle your business.
Yeah.
You're still a
Yeah.
piece of shit because you laid hands on Cynthia.
Of course, yeah.
You're okay for whooping Jimmy's ass, you know. And and so and then when it starts winding up toward the end, and we're getting the scene with Tyson and Chester, and
Mhm.
and holy shit, I still
Mhm.
found it hard to like him. Even
Really?
yeah, because and I don't. It's I've never been in those shoes. I don't know. And so
Mhm.
for me to sit back and say I just didn't fucking like him, he would just because that, like you said,
Mhm.
you can't just say, oh, it was the drugs. That's just like people who
Yeah,
get
no.
fucking drunk and smack people around and be like, oh,
Yeah.
drunk. No, there's no. You chose to do that fucking shit, dude.
Yeah.
And that's like when he hit her. I just knew right then when he hit her, I was like, oh, dude, because now, like, you've seen just how low you can go. Like
Mhm.
you've lost everything. You
Yeah.
um, and then we get the scene toward the end where he calls his dad up
Mhm.
and he's talking to his dad, and he's letting his dad know that he's been clean for like 2 months, and
Mhm.
his dad's like, it's good to hear from you, you know, and it was like that, and you can tell he's going through those small baby steps of having to rebuild because at this point he has nothing,
Yeah.
he's having to just almost kind of baby step his way back into, I guess, like,
Society.
yeah, there you go. And
Yeah.
but there was a funny part in my mind though, because my mind's kind of fucked up. when he
That's
calls
okay.
when he calls his dad,
Yeah.
and his dad's sitting there, and he's telling his dad that he's clean and sober, and his dad's sitting there, and he shows that close up of the dad's face, and in my
Shit.
mind, I go, "Boy, if Dad bends over and snorts a line, I'm going to fucking lose it."
Yeah, the way we wrote that character and the way the great Jason Moreland played that character was if as if he had his own problem with substance abuse as well to some form. In our minds, we thought that Chester's dad was a drunk. We thought that, Chester had some trouble in his youth with
Yeah,
his dad. And I mean, a lot of the time addiction and substance abuse, it stems from a family member. It's sort of hereditary in that regard, and it passes through generation to generation. And I think Chester has a lot of built up generational trauma from his father. And I think his father, I mean, you just take one look at him, he looks as dirty as Chester when
yeah.
he's on screen. So I think he's got his own demons that we don't necessarily see on screen. But that would have been pretty funny.
Because I felt like, with the dad, I would think like maybe the dad had a hard time facing Chester because I felt like maybe
Mm.
when the dad looked at Chester, he seen himself. Like maybe the dad was
Yes.
there at
Yep.
some point. And so when he looked at him, it was like looking in a mirror. And he could
Yeah.
it was like that constant reminder of what maybe where he brought himself from,
Mm.
and I could y'all could almost imagine like hearing Chester talk when he's talking to Tyson about, and Tyson doesn't sugarcoat it with him.
Mm.
Tyson's very like, you're not going to wake up one day, guy, and
Mm.
the memories aren't going to be there. The
Mm.
the urges are not going to be there. Like it's something you're going to learn and
Yeah.
learn to live with. So I like how, Tyson was not sugarcoating shit for him. He was there for him, but he was
Yeah.
like, but Chester was kind of like, well, like when does this stop or when does this heal? And
Yeah.
Tyson, dude, it may never.
Yeah, and there's a great moment earlier in one of their scenes, one of the sponsor scenes, where, Chester says he processes it and he says, like, is this how I'm supposed to feel about being sober? And Tyson has this really great moment where we just zoom in on Tyson and we
Yeah.
all we see is him talk. And, he says, yeah, yeah. I mean, and he goes on to talk about the other people who may or may not have been in Chester's life and how they kind of maybe just get caught in between all of this fucking chaos. That's what happens when you're an addict. A lot of the people that you love or that are around you, they also get caught up in the shit that you're stirring. So
Yeah. And hey, man, I enjoyed the shit out of it, man.
thank you.
Yeah, it was. I I felt like I knew all of them.
Yeah.
All the characters had enough time to where, and you didn't even need like, backstories and shit because,
Mm.
like you said, a lot of that stuff stems from just childhood, from how, you can fill those blanks in yourself. You
Yeah.
When it comes to like Cynthia, good
Hmm.
Lord, who knows what this girl went through, you
I
know,
know. Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
child growing up that could lead to this.
Yeah.
Same thing with like Chester and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But I liked how I got to know him. I liked how I was able to like some and feel sorry for
Hmm.
them, and some I just fucking didn't like them and wanted their ass whooped. Damn it,
Yeah, it's great. I mean, with every takeaway from everyone that watches it, it's so interesting as the person who came up with it. It's interesting for me to listen to what people have to say about these characters, just as human beings and how they observe these characters. And a lot of people feel bad for Jimmy, and a lot of people feel bad for Chester, or a lot of people feel bad for Cynthia. No one feels bad for my character.
No, no, Big Trap made it clear where he stood.
Yeah, absolutely. But
There was never a come to
yeah,
Jesus moment for Big
yeah,
Trap.
there is no redeeming qualities about my character. But as far as the main trio goes, yeah, it's so interesting to see, which side people pick, so to speak, and I think it's interesting that you feel that Jimmy is sort of the anomaly in all this. He's the bad guy in this, I mean, I think I have to remain unbiased,
Yeah.
and whatever, however people interpret the characters. But for me, I always have felt that Jimmy is the most tragic part of the film. I actually think that Chester is worse than Jimmy, and I think I don't. I know that Jimmy has free will, but I feel empathy for Jimmy. I feel empathetic for who Jimmy is and who he wanted to be at the start of the film, right? He said to his brother, "Hey, I want to be a good person and I'm trying to be a good person." And I think the biggest takeaway for the film that I would hope people can observe is that, just to have empathy for the characters, have empathy for these people, because there are plenty of Jimmys out there. There are plenty of Chesters, there are plenty of Cynthias, there are plenty of these people out there, and a lot of the characters that are, you see in the film, they are very loosely based on certain people that I've known or that I've come to know. And it's a very human tale of adolescent substance abuse.
Yeah, and it was very well done, very well said, and
Thank you.
you almost made me feel a little bit bad for disliking Jimmy as much as I did. Damn it. Maybe if Chester would have had his moment with Big Trap, maybe I would have
Yeah.
it differently. But Chester
Yeah.
just
Well,
Chester walked away with he lost it all. But Jimmy walked
yeah.
away getting his ass whooped. That was
Yeah.
but
Getting beat to
Chester
death.
just
Yeah.
got to maybe Chester would have felt better if he would have just got his ass whooped real good.
Yeah, maybe. I
Maybe
mean,
it's like
it's that argument of whether or not how much guilt weighs on you. For
yeah,
some people don't really feel guilt at all, but I think Chester, he does feel things very deeply. He feels his emotions very deeply. We see this throughout the whole film, whether it's a bad emotion or a more positive emotion. And I don't know. It's just it's tragic, but it's also hard not to blame Chester for all of this, And then again, you look at Cynthia too, who sort of this like femme fatale in a way, and she sort of got Chester deeper and deeper into this shit, and then
yeah,
She set Jimmy up, I mean, it's hard to feel bad for her, but the audience is led to believe that we should feel bad for her because we see the sister, we see that she's just a young woman, caught between all these really shitty, disgusting men.
yeah.
Again, it just really depends on how you interpret the characters and what you take away. There actually was a deleted scene between Big Trap and Chester where Big Trap went to confront Chester, but I think that the way the story works now is that there's sort of this equal balance of like who people can root for. I didn't want people to hate Chester, but I also didn't want people to hate the other characters as well. I want people to try and feel empathetic for all of them in a way.
No, that definitely works. I joked about if Chester would have got his ass whooped, but
Yeah.
you know, not seeing that it adds something else to where in my mind if I'm Chester, that I feel even that's more I feel worse now because Jimmy
Hmm.
because at some point in the back of Chester's mind he knows
Hmm.
Jimmy was trying. Jimmy
Yeah.
had hopes of being on a certain path and doing the right thing, and Chester knows that he pulled him back into it. And then Chester
Yeah.
also got to deal with the fact that Jimmy, all this
Hmm.
happened to Jimmy because I decided to bully him and pick on him and be like, you're going to come to this party to me or you ain't shit,
Yeah.
So Chester, having to deal with that stuff, I think would be harder than you know, if you just got your ass whooped. Because
Mhm.
growing up, like when I would get in trouble, my mom would do things like ground me, take shit from me. And my
Mhm.
mama believed in whooping my ass growing up, old school. And I would just be like, look at my mom and be like, just whoop me. Just take me back there and whoop my ass.
Mhm.
Let me go on about my day. But when you ground me, that's different. Like,
Yeah, that's the guilt, it
yeah,
stays with you.
yeah. Like I'm having to pay for this over like a 2 weeks time. Like you just whoop my ass
Yeah.
in 5 minutes and let me go about my,
Yeah.
but everybody in this movie, man, just awesome job. Like everybody was it was very well shot. I liked
Thank you.
the everything about it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what you got coming next, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It
Yeah.
was great getting to chat with you. Thank you for always spotlighting independent creators as well. I think it's a really great thing that you do.
Yeah, man. I love them. And like I said, I admire the work that independents do and the talent
Absolutely.
y'all bring to the table doing that. And Edge X people, it's on YouTube. The links will all be here. Um, go watch it, go check it out. And you know, and I like the fact that everybody's had different types of views on it, of who they
Yeah.
who they see as maybe the bad guy or the one they feel
Yeah,
that's super cool. Like I said, and that's the
absolutely.
thing about and because even after like hearing you explain certain things, it
Hmm.
makes me kind of step back and go, well, I didn't think of it that way. That's a cool
Yeah,
thing about it. You know, I
absolutely,
got different
brother.
views.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I
Yeah,
would say
the
I like
stories
it.
that I tell, I always want people to interpret them differently. You know, I always want my stories to be of interpretation, and I want people to be able to take away multiple things. You know, I think I never want to be defined in one answer. You know, I want the work that I put out there to be defined in multiple answers in multiple ways by multiple groups of people. So anything I do, I never want to be definitive.
Yeah. And like I said, awesome job, man. I
Thank you
was
so
super
much.
excited, knowing that a year ago we were on this show talking about it, and
Absolutely.
now here we
Yeah.
are just a year later and being able to see it all come to life,
Yeah.
and it was super cool to me seeing the movie after seeing the like your Instagram post with the
Mm.
characters and the people in it and being
Yeah.
able to watch it and be like, holy shit, like,
Hmm.
it definitely adds more to like when I see the pictures of them now of
Mm.
knowing who like Chester is and
Mm.
Cynthia is and stuff like that. But I had a good time with it, man. And like I said,
Thank you so much, man.
I
Thank you for having me.
definitely appreciate you letting me watch it. And
Absolutely.
now I'm telling everybody out there, family, get on over to YouTube and watch it and go follow along with Sid Instagram, Sid's Cinematics.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I
Thank you
plan
so
on
much.
all those links will be in the bio.
Yeah. Check out
Also,
the Fright Flick show across all platforms as well. Listen to every other show this guy's got. Thank you so much, Jay. It's
hey,
always wonderful getting to chat with you, man.
yeah, man, and like I tell you, you part of the family. You always got to see that this
Thank
deal,
you.
man.
I appreciate it.
And
Thank you so much. I look forward to the next time we're on here.
yeah, I look forward to whatever you got coming next. And anytime
Yeah, it,
you want to hear and shoot the shit, man, you just give us a
thank you. Thank you, brother. Great chatting with you, my man.
yeah. It most definitely is. And so, like I said, people go watch the movie, go follow along, and the kids got talent. I call you a kid because you're so fucking young, but and,
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to what you got coming next, man.
Thank you
Can't
so
wait.
much. Cheers to you. Thank you,
Hey,
brother.
hey, and this is that time of the show, family. You all know the deal right now. I need everybody to reach over. I need you to grab your drinks. I need you to gather up all your shit and put your chairs away and get the fuck out of here.
What's your favorite scary movie?
We have such sights to show you.
Monsters!
All you have left is my desire.
My name is Frankenstein!
Batman's got Mars!
Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
See this? This is my boomstick.
I ate his liver with some father beans. I screamed. It's us.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
It's alive! It's alive!
Here's Johnny. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror.
Welcome to the debauchery.